Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We are in now the very final poem of the section called Birds of Passage. This is poem number 7, With Antecedents. It's kind of a strange title, and it will draw some readers to the poem simply because of this strange title. It's a little 3-part poem to finish up this group of 7. And you'll remember that we said at the very beginning in our introductory comments about Birds of Passage that this was a collection of poems that kind of centered around the idea of evolution and journeys and passage. And we're here going to comment on the evolution of culture and the notion of transcend and include. Now, our assumptions are that you've been with us from the very beginning at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, our playlist is called Talks with Walt, and we've started with the very first word of this deathbed edition, come. We'll be playing around with that word here as we finish this poem. We've worked an introductory set of comments for Birds of Passage. We've done all of the previous 6 poems of Birds of Passage, and now we are ready to look at this little poem, With Antecedents. Now, as we often like to do, our Nortons will give us some background information. Norton's tells us the first publication of this poem was in the New York Saturday Press, January 14th, 1860, under the title You and Me and Today. In the 1860 Leaves of Grass, it's number 7 of the Chance Democratic, taking its present title from 1867 on. And then we're told that there were a couple of different possible titles for this poem. Poemet, P-O-M-E-T, deleted for evolutions, the parenthetical phrase of line 23, torn, stormy, even as I, amid these vehement days, was added in 1867. Now, I've already mentioned that you want to pay attention to the word come, and the way in which this poem will in some ways return us back to the very first comments that we made. Many have pointed out that here we will see Whitman's ecumenical outlook regarding religions and world religious systems. The great biographer of Whitman, David Reynolds, says that Whitman accepted all the churches but believed in none of them. And that idea does come full circle here with antecedents. Now, notice right away, we'll begin with the word with, and we've got this anaphoria. We've seen this before in Leaves of Grass. 15 times now we're going to hear this word with be used. With antecedents, by the way, this is the only use of the word antecedents in all of Leaves of Grass. Now, of course, grammatically, and we're going to actually have a little interesting grammatical observation here in the middle of this poem. You'll remember antecedents, that which comes before. That is to say, what are you going to do with that? You've used a pronoun, that, without an antecedent. We always have rules. You got to provide what comes before. And so with antecedents, just simply here will mean that which comes before. In other words, I have these things which came before as I am then getting ready to move forward. With antecedents, notice, with my fathers and mothers, and if you'll think about it, Leaves of Grass has really in many ways been all about parentage. And so now we're back to it. My fathers and mothers and the accumulations of past ages, of course, key on the word accumulations, past ages, that is that which came before, with all which, had it not been, I would not now be here as I am. You remember that Tennyson will say in the poem that Whitman loved, Ulysses, I am part of all that I have met. I am part of all that I've met. Right. Here we're playing the same game. There is nothing, in other words, insignificant in any moment in your life. With all which, had it not been, I would not now be here as I am. And I told you this I am phraseology that he borrows from the book of Exodus. He's used a number of times in Leaves of Grass. And now, look at all of the different kinds of lists that we're going to get. Borrowing from Solomon number 10, we're with Egypt. With Egypt, India, the interesting spelling of Phoenicia, Greece, and Rome. With the Celt, the Scandinavian, the Alb, this is the man of Album, that is to say England, right? And the Saxon, with antique maritime ventures, laws, we're going to come back to this word laws later, artisanship, wars and journeys, we think of the Odyssey, obviously, with journeys, with the poet, the skald, we'll come back to the skald, the Old Norse poets, the saga, the myth, the oracle, we'll come back to this as well, the oracle here in a bit, with the sale of slaves, and all of a sudden you go, where in heaven's name did that come from in this strange long list of all these antecedents? And it will take us back to I Sing the Body Electric, passage 7, and Whitman's quandary at times with the very history of slavery in America. With enthusiasts, we will remember the enthusiasts of John Brown mentioned in the last poem. With the troubadour and the crusader and the monk, we're going to get back to monks here in a little bit. With those old continents, whence we have come to this new continent. I told you guys that one of the things Whitman's constantly arguing is the new is the new. The NEW is the KNEW, right? With the fading, watch how he uses the word fading twice. With the fading kingdoms and kings over there, obviously he's talking Europe, right? With the fading religions and priests, we're back to Song of Myself, passage 1, creeds and schools in abeyance. With the small shores we look back to from our own large and present shores. Pure Whitman, we've seen this a number of times already, that Europe and all of the great European civilizations are small in comparison to what America is about to become. With countless years drawing themselves onward and arrived at these years again. Transcend and include, one of the fundamental ideas of evolution. Whitman plays the game over and over again. You and me arrive. Now, in a little bit it will be I and you, and of course here it should be you and I arrived. There's a little bit of a grammatical misstatement here, which we have to smile about, given, of course, the use of antecedents. You and me arrived, notice the dash. America arrived. I told you guys, when he uses the word America, he doesn't do it very often in the great epic poem of America. When he does, we sit up and we take note. I hear America singing, back to our inscriptions observation. We'll get this America here again in a little bit, 2 more times. You and me arrived, America arrived, and making this year, 14th of January 1860, when it's first published, sending itself ahead countless years to come. The use of the word come at the conclusion, we're going to come back to it 2 more times, and obviously it'll be the last word of the poem. It is, as we've said, the very first word. When you opened up the deathbed edition of Leaves of Grass, the very first word was come. And now to passage 2. Oh, but it is not the years, and then again the dash. It is I, it is you. We touch all laws and tally all antecedents. Now this use of the word laws for the second time takes us back obviously to Aeneas in his conversation in Aeneid 6 in the underworld with Anchises' father. What is it that will make Rome so great? It will be the laws. We've given full lectures of this, of course, at learnstrong.net. The use of the word tally, you'll remember this from Song of Myself, passage 25, keeping tally with the meaning of all things. Harold Bloom has said a lot about this use of the word tally. Tally all antecedents. We are the skulls, again, second reference. The oracle, again, referencing earlier. The monk and the knight. We easily include them and more, transcend and include. We stand amid time, beginningless and endless. You'll remember, of course, T.S. Eliot's opening lines of Burnt Norton, time present and time past are both perhaps present and time future contained in time past. I think that T.S. Eliot learned to think about time in large measure from his study of Leaves of Grass. We stand amid time beginningless and endless. We stand amid evil and good. We'll come back to this in the next line. All swings around us. This use of the word swings is fascinating. By the way, pay attention as you're annotating your deathbed edition every time the word all gets used in this poem. All swings around us. There's as much darkness as light. The very sun swings itself in its system of planets around us. Its sun and its again all swing around us. You'll remember that in starting from Pomenock passage 7, I am just as much evil as good. Go back and look at what we had to say about that. Whitman's inclusivity here as it relates to both light and darkness makes us think of the yin-yang symbol of Taoism. As for me, and then here it is in a parenthetical phrase. What is it that Whitman will say about himself? Torn, stormy, amid these vehement days, to the old cause is the other use of vehement. I have the idea of all, and am all, and believe in all. And then he'll say it. I believe materialism is true, and spiritualism is true. I reject no part. Go back to Song of Myself, passage 48. I have said that the body is not more that the soul is not more than the body, and the body is not more than the soul, and nothing, not God, is greater to than oneself is. This radical inclusivity, this ecumenical inclusivity that he will play with. And then another parenthetic. Have I forgotten any part, anything in the past? Come to me again for one more time. The word will get used at the very last word of the poem. Come to me, whoever and whatever, till I give you recognition. And in the end, this is what Whitman believes great poets will do. They want to respect. They want to appreciate. That's the word we use often in 303. Want to appreciate, respect all different viewpoints. And there is the word itself with the repetition of I 4 times. I respect. And then this strange kind of list, I mean, in terms of the study of religions and culture. Assyria, China, Teutonia, and the Hebrews. That is to say, all these different kinds of religious systems. I adopt each theory, myth, God, notice not capitalized God, and demigod. I see that the old accounts, Bibles, not capitalized, notice plural, genealogies are true without exception. Again, this is that idea from Song of Myself, passage 1, Creeds and Schools in Abeyance. This idea that we also encountered in Song of the Open Road. Notice he'll say, all of them are true without exception. I assert that all past days, again, notice the use of the word all, were what they must have been and that they could know how, and this know how is a very Americanist kind of usage, have been better than they were. And then today is what it must be. Notice his use of the word must. And that America is, and that today in America could know how be better than they are. In other words, again, we go back to this idea that everything is as it must be. Everything evolutionarily is bringing us to this moment in time. And again, his ecumenical view that all religions are true to the degree that they are necessary and must be respected. And then finally, the third section to finish this, he'll play the game in the name of these states. And for those of you that go, wait a minute, where have I read that? Go back and look at starting from Pomonok in the inscriptions, part 4, and the very language, word for word, in the name of these states. And in your and my name. Again, this idea of the name is so significant because, as we said, in 1855, when he publishes Leaves of Grass, Whitman does not put his name anywhere on that cover page. He, of course, will play that game in the deathbed edition, which is going to begin with that little phrase, that little epigram at the beginning with the word come. The name, of course, also makes us think of the game that Odysseus plays in naming himself or not naming himself. You'll remember he says to Polyphemus that his name is nobody, etc., etc. In the name of these states, and in your and my name, the past, notice capitalized, and in the name of these states and in your and my name, the present time, this idea of the beginning to fold together the beginning of past and present. And as I said, I believe that it's clear to me in my study of T.S. Eliot and Four Quartets, I've given full lectures on it, but I really do believe you can't read Four Quartets without really appreciating that T.S. Eliot borrowed heavily from Whitman here. I know, now this takes us back to Song of Myself, passage 46, I know I have the best of time and space. Notice the construction of I know and what it is that he's certain of. I know that the past was great and the future will be great. And I know that both curiously conjoint in the present time. By the way, do you remember this use of the word curiously? And I sing the Body Electric too. Curiously in the joints. And here it is, curiously conjoint. These kind of echoes fascinate me in the present time. And then in parenthetics. For the sake of him, I typify, only use of the word typify, in the entire Leaves of Grass. For the common average, only time that phrase gets used in all Leaves of Grass. For the common average man's sake, for your sake, if you are he. In other words, Whitman wants to be the poet that typifies the average, the collective, the everybody, while at the same time celebrating the individual. And that where I am or you are, this present day, there is the center of all days, all races. And some of you will pay attention to his spelling of the word center. Go back to the poem, to the O Cause, to kind of see how he plays with that word center. Of all days, all races, and there is the meaning to us of all that has ever come, of races and days, or ever will come. America is the ultimate meaning. And because he says, I am you and you and you in some strange way you also are me, where somehow all of us as Americans, the definition of the meaning of civilization. It is an incredibly powerful argument that he's going to make. Obviously you have to decide whether you believe in it or not, but this is the view that he will make of America. And now to finish it to a civilization then is always about transcending and including everything that has gone before is somehow bringing us to this moment in time. At 2B is repetition with the 15 withs and all the way through it. I find that fascinating. At 3A, we've made this comment before about the great religion expert Houston Smith, and what we will refer to as the non-apologetic study of religions comes to mind in his Religions of the World. I also want to think about Marcus Aurelius. I think that Whitman is, as I said to you guys many times, Whitman is having a lot of fun here, and I think he's tipping his hat towards Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Go back to see our lectures on it, and the way that Meditations opens, it opens with antecedents. That is to say, who am I responsible to and for all the things that I am? And of course he begins by saying thank you to any number of people. And finally at 3B, it does lead us to this question about your own antecedents. If you had to sit down and make, who are the antecedents? Who are those which came before, which produced in you what you are? Okay, what would those be? Another question, do you believe in fact that all religions are true and without exception? And in what ways is that possible for you? How about this one? Do you have any thoughts now that you've finished the 7 poems of Birds of Passage? And to what degree are you yourself taking a passage? And is your study of Leaves of Grass a foundational now part of that study? Come back and we'll mess around with the Broadway pageant. Thank you.